Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Gloria, a data scientist. Today I'm going to show you how to solve any Leetcode SQL question in a structured way. My 5-step method. Are you ready? Let's get started. Question 1581. Customer who visited but did not make any transactions. It's an easy question. It gives us two tables. Table visits and table transactions. In the visits table, it has two columns, visit ID and customer ID. And the visit ID is the column with the unique values for this table. So visit ID in this table is the primary key because it has the unique values. And the table contains information about the customers who visited the mall. And the transaction table. Transactions table has three columns. Transaction ID, visit ID, and amount. Transaction ID is the column with the unique values for this table, so transaction ID is the primary key. And the table contains information about the transaction made during the visit ID. And it asks us to write a solution to find the IDs of the users, IDs of the customers or customer ID, who visited without making any transactions, and the number of times they made this type of visits. And we are going to return the result table in any order. Let's take a look at one example. In example 1, the visits table has visit ID from 1 to 8. Transactions table has 5 different transaction IDs. The purpose is to find the customer ID, the ID of the users, who visited without making any transactions, and the number of times they made this type of visits. So we are going to combine these two tables together to add the transaction ID and amount information from the transactions table to the visits table. So in this way, we have every visit ID, visit customer ID information, and their corresponding transactions. To work on it, we are going to treat the visits table as the main table, or the left table when you do the left join, and the transactions table as the right table to connect them together. And we are going to use the visit ID as the foreign key to bring them together. Here is the combined table after we do the left join. For every visit ID, we search in the transaction table here. If we find the corresponding visitor ID, we find their transaction ID and amount and fill in the table here. For example, when visit ID is 1, we find the corresponding transaction ID is 12, so we fill in 12, and the transaction amount is 910. When the visit ID is 2, the transaction ID is 13, and the amount is 970. So we fill in here. And the visit ID 4 doesn't exist in the transaction table, so we are going to fill none here. Indicates there's no corresponding transaction in the transaction table. And when the visitor ID is 5, we find multiple transactions in the transactions table. When visitor ID is 5, we have 3 different transactions. They are transaction ID 2 with the amount 310, transaction 3 with the amount of 300, and the transaction 9 with the amount of 200. So we are expanding the left table so that we can fill in all the transaction information to the left table. And when the visit ID is 6, 7, and 8, we are not able to find any transaction here. So everything is none. In this question, to find the ID of the user who visited without making any transactions, then we are going to search for, in this table, when the transaction ID is none or when the amount is none. And the user and the customer ID are 30, 96, 54, and 54. The second part of the question is to count the number of times these customers made this type of visits without making any transactions. So we are going to summarize this table to 30, customer ID 30 once, 96 once, and the customer ID 54 twice. Here is our final answer. And they match this answer. A quick recap, I'm using a 5-step method to work on any SQL question. If you are not familiar with the 5-step method, please refer to my other video for more information. In this question, step 1, identify the data fields to return. In the given example, it showed us we are going to return the customer ID and a new created field called count number of transactions, count no trans. So we are going to write customer ID, and we are going to do something here to generate a new field as count no trans. In the second step, we can fill in this part later. In the second step, we are looking for the related tables. And the related table in this question are visits and transactions. Step 3, we are going to connect the step 2 table together. As I already explained in the previous example, to work on this question, we are going to do a left join. Use the visits table as the left table, and to join the transactions table as the right table, and merge on the key visit ID to bring them together. So it will generate a table like this. So it's from visits, left, join, transactions, on, here is the condition, visits, visit ID is the same as transactions visit ID. After this step, the SQL automatically generates a virtual table look like this. Basically, it brings all the transactions from the transaction table and merge to the visits table by using the same visit ID. Go to step 4, apply additional conditions. In this question, we are finding the IDs of the user who visited without making any transactions. In this way, when the transaction ID is null, and when the amount is null, just either transaction ID is null or amount is null, we can say this is one visit without any transaction. So I'm going to put a where condition here. Where, let's just use the transaction ID. Is null. You can also use amount here. Either way works. After we apply step 4, where transaction ID is null, we have a clean table with only the visit ID, customer ID, and when the customer visited the store without any transaction. So we have 4 records. Record 1, record 2, record 3, and record 4. It's a clean table with only the customer ID and their visit ID when they made no transaction at this store. The last step is we are going to find the ID of the users who visited without making any transaction and the number of times they made during this type of visits. So we need to further summarize this table by customer ID. So it will be group by customer ID. Group by customer ID. And then count the number of records in this table. So the last part is to fill in here. Count the number of records in the cleaned table and group by customer ID. If you are not familiar with the summary functions in SQL and group by, I'm going to create a separate video further explain those terms. Now, I'm going to translate the 5 steps to SQL code. Select. Here are the data fields we identified in step 1. From. Here is the table we created in step 3, which is a left join table. We used the visits table as the left table and left join the transactions table on the condition when they share the same visit ID. And then we apply the condition we identified in step 4, where transaction ID is none. That means, based on the merged table, we find out all those visit ID and the customer ID combination when the customer made no transaction during that visit. And the next step is to group by customer ID. So, based on this table, we already filtered the visit ID and the customer ID when they made no transaction to the store during the visit. The next step is to summarize by customer ID to count for each customer ID how many non-transactions they made when they visited the store. Then step 5, return the result. Let's try to run it. Okay, we passed. And submit it. Okay, succeed. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you like it. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe my channel, and hit the notification bell. Also, please drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.